Choo choo right out of the gate. Welcome in, gatekeepers. How y'all doing? Happy almost 4th of July if you happen to be within the colonies, as I've been hearing for a couple of days. It seems so strange to reach back that far and even further. I mean, gosh, what was it? A week ago we did Lewis and Clark, and thinking about walking across that land and not really blazing a trail because of course the indigenous people are the ones who made the trails there, but getting to see it for the first time through their eyes, and getting to speak to all of the different tribal communities along the way, because Sacagawea was there and she was able to help communicate. And then eventually that one great winter that they spent, Lewis and Clark spent at the fort, where they were all in all summer, I mean, excuse me, all winter, if you can imagine that, and learned so much from each other. Um, with his crew, I guess at that point in time, there were about 42, if they were all there in his little group. And I don't know how many Native Americans were there at the fort, but it was about an even number on both sides. And to think of the conversations. Well, now I'm kind of reaching back because we're going to do that series I announced last night. Lynn Monet, wonderful author and medium experiencer, so many things in the supernatural paranormal. I could just keep giving her labels, just like a lot of us have so many different things that we're interested in and things that we've done. But we're doing that series called Liberty. And she wanted to say thank you for the prayers. Thank you for the well wishes. I don't have all the details on the pup, but when I spoke to her last, she was there at the vet, and things look good, but she was going to have to stay there for a little bit. I believe he needed some fluids, some other stuff. So she was actually watching it on her phone. So trooper that she is. So doing the Liberty, which is basically how the first rumblings of the revolution, which basically led to 1776 and a country, and it was almost so oddly accidental. And then the energy and the oomph and the backing and the money and the opportunity and all of these different things, fate, divine intervention, luck, bad luck, good luck, it's absolutely insane to go back and look at all these things, that if this didn't happen, this would have never happened. And if this didn't happen, and then you won't believe what happened here. That kind of stuff. I love those kind of stories. And reaching back to the American Revolution definitely is full of those stories. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ghost stories. My personal experiences, as far back as I can remember, and foggy as it may be, it was such a profound experience. I definitely remember those. And the most profound one was a Revolutionary War ghost. I can't be 100% positive of that, but I can tell you that the opportunity was there because it was in farmlands in New Jersey. And there was many skirmishes there, and it was right there by the Battle of Fort Monmouth and so many other things. So I believe, and I've talked to this gentleman that's coming on tonight, that was one of the things that we really talked about, was our first experiences and how it kind of fueled that entire journey of, I guess you could say, quest for answers, or just trying to prove you weren't crazy. And other people have had this experience too. And wow, this is so much like mine. And it just keeps going. And mine's been going, what, since that experience, I can honestly say 60 years. It's a long time. It's a long time. So without further ado, we are going to be talking about all that stuff tonight. There was a couple of soldier ghost stories that we told on Memorial Day, but I thought, why not? They're soldiers. They're, this is definitely a chain of events here where you're having, let's see, today is July 1st, 2024. So we're looking at 161 years that the Battle of Gettysburg started today on July 1st in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. 4-day battle. We've talked about it many times on this show. I've had so many wonderful people from Gettysburg and people that have studied it most of their lives, you know, Mark Nesbitt and so many others, and talked about all the ghosts in Gettysburg. And we have a couple of those tonight. But we also have some from the Revolutionary War. And you think about that, well, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, right? So July is a hot month in America, apparently, folks. You know, a lot goes on. So maybe put on your seatbelts for your July. I don't know how it's going to be, but let's have fun tonight. So without further ado, let's get this wonderful man in here, Mr. Steve Stockton. Steve, are you ready? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. I see his icon, but I don't know if he's ready, so we'll just wait and see. So beyond that, guys, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. I don't know how much you guys know about the Revolutionary War. And I know you can think you know an awful lot, and then you open up another book and you see another group of facts and things that they've dug up through journals or letters, or somebody, you know, went down this rabbit hole this way and this one. There's so many fantastic stories. I think anytime you dig into something that's this massive, an event that took in so many people, in this case, you know, two huge countries, Britain and, you know, what was an offshoot of that, basically almost like a child of Britain, was these 13 colonies, a very young bunch of people that were trying to create their own place to live. And again, like I said last night, we can talk a lot about, you know, what was going on before they ever got there and what happened after they got there, and the genocide and the moving of the indigenous peoples and the fighting and the wars. But at this point, we had gotten through so much for, you know, centuries here. And now we're up to the point where we're trying to, I guess, as the colonies, establish their own sovereignty, their own right to govern themselves, to, I guess, to the common person that basically believed if they were living in Virginia, that was their state. You know, they felt that each colony was like its own country almost. You know, we certainly weren't called united anything. You know, this is before that. But one little act, you know, after the French and Indian War, after things started picking up after that, it was amazing to see the journals and the letters of people that came to visit America or the colonies and say things like, you don't see poverty here. Everybody works hard. These little towns are all pretty much sufficient, you know, not really self-sufficient, but self-sufficient on many levels. They are still getting supplies from Britain. They are still getting help, of course, and they had help with this French and Indian War. And you shoot back over to Parliament and to Britain and what people feel there, and they're thinking, you know, if we're going to guard them, they can give us some taxes and help us pay for it. So they came out with a little something called the Stamp Act. And it didn't seem like very much, but it was enough to make those people who felt like they had earned the right to have a say at the table, it got under their skin a little bit. And they were not appreciative of getting taxation without representation, or even being able to say what they felt about it. And all of this correspondence is taking so long in between. That's like one of the hardest things to imagine, taking 6 weeks for letters to get back and forth across the pond, basically. And that kind of gap in time really adds to the angst of this whole thing. So, Steve, you got a thumbs up there, darling? So this man right here, I'll tell you what, one of the busiest men on the inner tubes, multiple channels, missing persons and mysteries, just so many different genres for your taste, and each one of them just as good as the next. And then you have the radio show and the books, and I'll tell you what, none of that None of that, as good as it is, tops being able to just sit down next to him and have a visit and just have a nice talk like we're going to do tonight. Welcome in, Mr. Steve Stockton, everybody.
Well, thank you. With an introduction like that, I wish I had a better show for these people.
You're all done now. Just say good say good night, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie.
How you doing?
Doing good. Good to see everybody
We
here.
went fast.
Ian Myself said, "Who else wants to see Steve Stockton sing karaoke?" I won't do it on Cisco's show
What?
because she'll get a copyright claim. But if you come over to Lee G, First Floor Audio, on Saturday night when he does cover versions, you can hear me sing some karaoke this Saturday night. I'll do it.
Well, I'll put it on the calendar. What you gonna sing? Some beach somewhere?
I don't know. I've got a few that
I think that's something. That'll be fun. That's something to look forward to. Where am I going to be Saturday night? I'm going to be watching Lee G's show and watch
watching me make a fool
Stockton
of
do some
myself.
karaoke. Yeah, it'd be fun. So, how's everybody doing tonight? Welcome in, Uncommon Belief, and Salvador. Salvador's here. Hey, honey, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a bit. RP's here. Hi, honey. How you doing? Ian.
I've got a
Flo,
question. I already
and
asked
Edna.
you, Cisco.
Richard.
I'll ask the chat here. Has anybody ever heard of something called Mad Chatter Radio?
Mm-hmm.
I've got it on my calendar that I'm on with them tomorrow at 7 p.m. I can't find an email.
Wow.
I can't find a message.
Wow.
I can't find anything. I don't even know who it is. I think it's a Mandela effect in action here.
And they don't exist anymore? Maybe you're not the same Steve. Maybe you're not the same Steve.
Found some stuff by that name, but one of them's a football commentator in Australia. The other's two girls that have a podcast that talk about I don't know what, but I don't know. So hopefully they'll get in touch with me before 7 p.m.
Yeah, if you're out there, Mad Chatter. It sounds like, is it a tea party of any kind? Does it tie into the Boston Tea Party?
I
don't Mad know. Chatter, that man had a tea party.
I asked all the usual suspects. I asked Michael Laciana. He helped me search for it because I searched Google. I searched my email.
Wow.
I searched
Mike.
podcatchers. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, honey. I'd never heard of it. All I can think of is Alice in Wonderland.
That was a paranormal channel, and one of the names sounds familiar, but I can't find any reference to it. So we'll find out. I'll let you know.
It's possible. I think my vote's on the Mandela Effect, and another Steve Stockton is going to be on that show tomorrow night, right on time, telling wonderful stories.
Yep.
Maybe I wonder if the stories would be the same. Of course not. They'd be similar. It'd be a little like those
Mandela Effect. It'd be just a little different. And
you know, what are those things that jump in and pretend to be the mimics, and they'll come back and you'll think it's your grandma, but it isn't because she's got six fingers and a tail. You know, that kind of mess.
My grandma did have.
Is it a mimic?
And a tail.
She?
Well,
I'll tell you what, my nana. I love my nana.
And a tail's in her backside, so yeah.
I'll just never forget how every time I went to see her, she'd show me that she could still touch her toes, flat-footed, flat hand, back straight. 98 years old, she could flat hand touch the floor. Put her hands flat.
To do that, I'd break it.
I couldn't do it now. I'd break in half too. And she's probably smiling hearing me tell that story, but I remember.
Salvador Soto, hey brother, how you doing? RP Scott is here. Uncommon Belief.
How's everybody doing?
It might be your friend that does whatever radio that is. What's his
conflict?
Yeah, but it wasn't him. Now he's asked me to be on, but he's still calling his conflict.
You should get on there. You're gonna have a good conversation.
Mark Anthony Wyatt, Mad Chatter. You know that sounds kind of British.
It does sound like a little cheeky
his
monkey.
Podcast is
no, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, something like that.
So it's not him. I don't know. But I told you about that other Mandela effect that I discovered. Did anybody here, when you were a kid, did you have a BB gun? And if so, what brand? Put the name of the brand in the chat. There was two really, really popular ones.
All I can think of is the one with the Christmas Story was going to shoot his eye out, and I know that's not right.
Was a Red Ryder BB gun made by Daisy, and that one's still the same. But there was another popular BB gun manufacturer. And they've been around since like the late 1800s, early 1900s. And the name has not changed, except in
I can't remember. I bet I'll know it when you say it, but I've got an absolute blank right now.
Crossman BB guns. Anybody remember Crossman? You can pump them up and take your
I do remember that. I'm lighting some
How do you
sage.
spell it?
I'm keeping the chat safe. I have no clue. You know what I remember though, not
I
to
said
change
this
this.
once before, and Scott's life agreed with me. Back when I was a kid, it was Crossman, Crossman. Now it's
There's Scott.
Crossman, one S,
Red Rider. That's
and
what
it
I was
does
thinking.
not look right. It does not look. Red Rider was made by Daisy, and they made several
Okay, so
files.
wait
I
a
had some
minute.
Daisy guns.
I got to go back and just regroup here for a minute. You're saying that there's another BB gun, not Red Rider, that is called Crossman, that has changed, the Mandela effect kind of thing, and
Yeah,
something has changed in the way it's spelled, or the
yeah.
logo, or both.
The way it's spelled and the logo. Now, the Red
Okay,
Rider, that was made by Daisy. Daisy made a bunch of different BB guns. I had several Daisy BB guns, but the
the
other
chat
big
thing.
popular brand was Crossman. They were, I think they cost a little bit more than the Daisies did, but I had both. But it was Crossman. Even Scott there in the chat,
Yeah,
Scott's
I
life,
bet you
said
Scott
two
would know.
S's. Now it's
No,
one S. And I'm like, that just does
no,
not look right. And I went
they
to
got to
their
stop.
website, read the
It's
history about the company. It's always had one S according to them, but I don't believe it.
it's those monkeys in that office pushing those buttons over there at that
In
certain place. I'm
the
telling you, they got the
LAC,
goats are jumping around, and they got
we need to
know
do a show about that one night.
heads on
Let's talk
pikes. They got all
Mandela
kind of
effect.
shit going on.
We'll do an iceberg on the Mandela because it is an iceberg. You start up here, and then the farther down you get, the bigger and more widespread it gets.
Look, my friend, once they hit the Fruit of the Loom and they took the cornucopia away, look, I'm
It
going to
was
tell you
there.
right now,
It used to be
it
there.
was just, they just got to stop messing with it because I can't take anymore. I knew at Bernstein Bears, I knew at
Yep.
Shazam, I saw those stupid pants he was wearing. I sat there
I got another one
cross-legged on the
for
floor
you.
with my
I
boys.
bet we have some Bible scholars in here tonight. I read the Bible.
That's changed as well. Did
The
you
Lion
hear Disney just bought the
Lion
rights to
and
the
the
King
Lamb.
James?
The Lion and the Lamb. It doesn't say that anymore. It says the wolf and the lamb or something. It never said that. There used to be a Christian coffee house in Knoxville where I grew up, Christian coffee house and bookstore. It's called the Lion and the Lamb.
1,000
But
T-shirts
that's
with the
not in
lion
the
and the
Bible
lamb,
now.
1,000
Apparently,
pictures.
it's the wolf will lay down with the lamb. I've never heard that in my
Does
life.
everything change? Does everything? So say you have stuff from like, I don't know, 1600s, just name it at the museum, and they've got the big biblical picture of the lion and the lamb there because you've seen 1,000 of them. 1,000. Do they change as well? Does it turn to a
It's
wolf,
not in the
or does
Bible
it stay the
anymore,
same,
according to
or it just
you.
never was?
Apparently, it just never was. But I know I heard it.
They
I've
just
heard it.
disappear. So all they have in all these museums is just that dull space on the wall where the picture used to be because it's a little
Maybe.
less faded around there or something. They have that at museum. And the pictures is gone because it never existed. No, because if it never existed, the shade wouldn't be there either. Just something else would be there because it never existed.
Would be a
That's
picture of a
confusing.
wolf.
I can't take that kind of stuff. It makes my head feel like it's on a roller coaster when I think about stuff like that. Because there's just so many layers and everything affects everything. But
Yeah.
I there was a cornucopia.
Agreeing with me, but it's I don't know.
The Lion and the Lamb, yeah.
Strange going on. Something strange going on.
Yeah, yeah. Is everybody saying it?
No.
Yep. Oh, the Beretta. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, now I had a Beretta, but it wasn't a BB gun. It was a real pew pew.
Let's pew pew. I loved that show.
Yeah.
I liked him a lot until he shot his wife and got away with it.
Oh, but he didn't do it. He went back in the restaurant to get his gun. Remember? He
that's
left
true.
in
the timing was all off on that.
Yeah.
The wrong brown bag and sitting at the booth, his hand above the booth, under the booth. Where was his hands? Where was the gun? Where was the paper bag? He had the bag, didn't have the bag. He walked to the car.
Realized he didn't have his gun.
Come on, man. As soon as
made a big deal out of, hey, I left my gun in that booth over there. Have you saw it? There it is. Thank you. And then he gets back out to his car and somebody shot his wife in the face. Okay.
This could go so many different ways.
Establishing an alibi.
Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Don't do it.
We should bring that show back and let him investigate that case. Him and
I remember the one where he was a priest.
Remember?
Yeah, that bird. Yeah,
that bird. I always wanted to poop on.
Remember when he played the priest? Do you remember that? What was the name of that one? I like that one too.
Oh,
I liked him. I liked his style, but you know
yeah,
what?
he was
They
a
didn't
tough
look
guy.
like they
He'd been
went
around
together.
forever. He was one of the little rascals, you know.
He was.
But that woman that in question there, Bonnie Blakely, I think was her name.
Was that her
She'd
name?
been
I can't
in
remember.
Bonnie Lee Blakely or Baker, something like that. She had been like a star stalker, chaser type thing. So apparently she was batshit
I
crazy
just don't
and stuff.
understand why he went
I
so
don't believe
well.
anybody
Who knows?
deserves to get shot
Who
in the
knows?
face, but
But the thing is there's a lot of chicanery going on there. There's a lot of, if you don't want people to think you're, shady, don't act shady. I mean,
yeah,
it's that simple.
if you
It's
don't
that
start
simple.
none, there won't be none. That's one of my dad's quotes there.
I mean, he couldn't slip her a couple of $100,000 and, get out my life, hit the road,
Yeah.
Jack.
And
There's
another one that
50 ways to leave your lover. Did he never hear that one?
Phil Spector, remember him? He Jerry Lee Lewis, they've all had
They're all
even
they're
Art
all
Bell,
they're all caught up.
The great one. He had a
But they're
wife that
so
died
happy,
under
Steve.
mysterious circumstances.
They're so happy. They have so much money. They got, nice clothes that look like garbage bags and
It's that
holes ripped in it.
rap song, Mo Money,
They're
Mo
so happy.
Problems.
Yeah, they're so happy. They're so happy. So anyway, and the thing that gets me is the people that know all the current events that are going on with people like that, but they have no clue what's going on with it. It's like keep watching your tickety talks. So you want to hear some I thought this would be cool because I know we're doing ghosts and I know we have stories and Steve's got a great story to share. Let me know when you want to share that.
The road here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get those pictures I sent
We were
you?
driving fast there. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I got the one. Was there more than one? I got a house.
I sent you a picture of the library and I sent you a picture of the house itself.
I do. I'll tell you what. I will, while we're watching this, I'll go grab that one. I forgot the one with the sign. I love that sign. And
yeah, I'm going to go get a good picture of that.
okay.
And I want to know the story behind it. There's a museum there too. And
I just love where you are. Are you going to get to walk around this summer? You're going to get out and
I've got.
Is Nick able to get out and you got to walk around, girl? Learn to push that pram now, the stroller.
Yeah, this ain't really a good place to walk around where we're at now. A lot of places there's no sidewalks or anything, but there's places we can go to walk. But yeah, a new camera rig. It's like the camera that's on a drone, but it's handheld, so it's like rock solid stable. You can move it around, do all kinds of stuff with it. It's a DJI Osmo Pocket 3. So I've got a whole list of stuff I want to film with it.
Well, I'll tell you right now,
be prepared for
somewhere around mid-September, it's going to be filled with baby pictures. I can guarantee you that.
That was
going to be any room for anything else.
Getting it, I want to take baby pictures and videos with it. So
absolutely,
and then doing the other stuff, that's just an added bonus.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. Tomorrow it'll be 9 weeks and 6 days
for
the baby. So 10 weeks from today, but I like saying 9 weeks and 6 days tomorrow. That's before you know.
I got to get moving. I got to finish.
Because when we first found out we were pregnant, like 40 weeks, holy cow! Of course, we were several weeks along when we found out.
Right.
But you think,
seems like so long goes so fast.
It does, but it's almost here now. So, September,
honey, it goes so fast, and once that child gets here, the only thing that goes slow is the nights.
Yeah,
that's a fact. Everything else is.
We're going to do a pool.
Those nights last forever.
we're going to do a pool, and I'll have to establish some rules and stuff for this. But if the projected due date for the baby is September 9th. So I want people at some point, you don't have to do it today, but before September, before August, let's say the end of August, pick the day that you think the baby's going to be born. And in the event of a tiebreaker, you can pick the time of day that'll be born. And whoever wins, I'll send you a couple of autograph books. How's that? If you're in the United States. Maybe even if you're not in the United States, we'll figure all that out. But we want to do a pool and see when. Now that's if it's born naturally and they don't have to, do something different. I don't think he's going to wait that long.
But still, I'll tell you what, Steve, you can just put a caveat on that or a thing on the end of that and said, well, as long as you've got you can keep your date, even if that, because we're not going to think that that's going to happen, just saying, but you could, even if it did, and you have a date to have that done, as long as the date was in before we knew that.
Yeah.
It could stand. It could stand.
if they decide to
That makes
induce
sense.
labor, or if they decide to go in and take
As
him
long
out
as you
with
got your date
C-section or something
in.
like that, as long as you've got a
Right.
date in there.
Right. See, that's what I'm
So,
saying.
but as
So
of now, as
that
of this
comes
very
from,
moment, the due date is September 9. So you can pick that one if you want to, and then we'll have to do tiebreakers, uh,
pick a time.
pick an hour
Everybody
and
should throw a
an
time in
hour
there
and a
anyway.
minute, 7:12, 7:13 a.m. or p.m. So
And that's
whoever
Steve's time.
gets the closest, and that's East Coast time. Yeah.
Yeah, that would have to be Steve's time. Look, we're jumping right in there. We're getting official with this. Okay, so the Stockton baby bingo cards will be
There
available
you go.
in collector's editions and
Stockton baby
director's cut
lotto.
and director's cut. All right, so I thought this would be fun to pull up some fun facts from the Revolutionary War. Listen, I've dug so much into this. I've heard about the things that women did and all this. Again, it doesn't matter how much you know. You're always never going to know everything about this. It's insane. And again, Steve, just like paranormal or anything else, it's just, I guess, a natural human trait to grab onto a lie and run with it. And once somebody tells it, everybody looks back 200 years later and goes, "Oh, look at the facts." No, and it just seems so funny, the little things. Like, here's one, and it's getting more popular that people know this now, and I think that's cool. That's really good. But why 4th of July? Why did we pick 4th of July? Because people considered, like the founding fathers, John Adams, if you asked him, he would figure another date we would celebrate. Does anybody know the actual date that independence was declared? Let's just put it that way. And it wasn't the 4th of July. It was the 2nd. The 2nd. And it wasn't signed till when? Anybody know? There's such a delay here. I always feel stupid asking questions because then I've heard people say it's just seconds, but sometimes it seems a lot longer, because I'm looking at the screen to see when certain things pop up and change, and it's longer because I can give a thumbs up, and it takes a while for that to happen on my other screen. It depends, and it hits different times on different screens. It's really strange, so you can't really assume. Well, it was on the date, so it was the day it was actually signed. Now, that's kind of a trick question because I'll be honest with you, it was signed by two people on the 4th of July. And that was John Hancock and his secretary. Can't remember his name. It's in here. It's in the thing. I don't want to say his name wrong. So many daggum names. Everybody has different names. Crazy. So it took a little while longer. It was officially signed by most of the 56 that signed it August 4th. So it's odd that they said, okay, well, we're going to pick the date it's signed, not the date it's declared. And it took 2 days because a lot of people think that there was a lot of changes made. There were a lot of changes made, but it didn't happen over quite a long period of time. Thomas Jefferson wrote it. He had his first draft. Ben Franklin went over it. John Adams went over it, and they were ready. And then they took it to the Second Continental Congress, and they looked at it and they started hacking out paragraphs, and really shifting around. But a couple of things are struck through where they had to change just a little wording or whatever. But and there's a lot of controversy about those discussions and what those paragraphs were. And we'll get into that later on when we do the series, and Lynn and I do the series on liberty. But I hope you'll be a part of that too, because it is really interesting, some of the things that you hear, and I think you're going to be surprised at some of the things you thought were true that were just a little off, or had that rumor even start, like the Declaration of Independence. There's another piece of information about the Declaration of Independence in this little video, but if you do want to be a part of that, Lynn and I are going to start it. We're trying to add another night, Steve, and what we're doing is kind of like, have you ever heard of those where people do the book of the month and everybody goes off and reads it and they come back and discuss the chapters? Yeah. What we're doing is I found a wonderful series done in 1997 for PBS, and it's like TV used to be, really, really good. They've got different actors playing all the different parts, and the words they say are actually in letters or journals or documents that the person said, instead of just talking about it, having the historians talk about it. And you really get to know a little bit about the people and their age. We're always seeing these all of these famous names older in these, kind of powdered wigs and things like that, and this look. And people kind of seem like they looked older back then because life expectancy, of course, was shorter. But these guys, when they started out, and the first echoes and rumblings of this, let's just say, disturbance, started 16 years before the Revolutionary War, really before that. But the discussions were started in a little place called the Green Dragon Tavern. And getting to know these guys in their mid-20s and 30s, early 30s, it's really something. It gives you a whole different realistic look into it, and almost where you can imagine yourself being in these positions. It's very interesting. So some of the fun facts that are in this video are just some of the little things that we're going to talk about coming up. And it's not all just war and politics and everything else. It's how everybody lived and how really simplistically they lived, but how their decisions also drastically changed everything. I mean, if you can imagine being part of these 13 colonies and then all of a sudden saying, okay, we're going to boycott everything coming out of Britain. Well, there goes everything. Now you have to produce everything. You're not going to make steel pins and that you used every day. All the salt was hard to get, sugar, and all this trade. And we're still having that kind of stuff now. If somebody gets an upstart and somebody stops something, blocks something, or trying to have some kind of a fisticuffs back and forth, it affects the little guy where they have to pay more for, the sugar or the coffee beans or the textiles or the pins. You know what I mean? We're still having those same issues. So I think that we're a lot closer to these people, whether it be the Civil War and the this day, 161 years ago, where Steve and I have gone over many of these, a story in the Civil War, and they're just like us, Steve. They're just like us. Yeah. And it's always seems to be surprising, though, So let's see what we can find here in a couple of fun facts. And Steve, if you want, you can read some. I'll read some. Can you see tonight? Are you good? Because I spring this stuff on Steve. That's why I always ask, because he hasn't rehearsed this, and but here we are. Let's see what happens.
American Revolutionary War, a few fun facts.
Always fun. War facts. Patriot, great movie.
American Revolution took place from 1775 to 1783. Where's the independence? Like, where's the beef?
Where's the beef at? Where is it?
The word independence never appears in the Declaration of Independence. Rather, it's titled the Unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America.
Look at that, Steve.
I can't read that one. That's
okay. No, that's just a visual.
Everybody should know what it says anyway.
The Unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. First time it was ever in print.
Forget that Paul Revere guy. Meet Civil. The Boston silversmith was actually accompanied by as many as 40 other men on his midnight ride to sound the alarm that the British were coming. 2 years later, 16-year-old Sylvia Ludington, the daughter of a colonel, rode 40 miles on her own from 9 p.m. to dawn to alert New York militia members that the Brits were burning down Danbury, Connecticut.
Isn't that something? So when you think, and I'll tell you something else, they didn't say the British are coming. Everybody was British. We forget that. They said the redcoats.
Wait a minute, that doesn't sound right.
Yeah, they said the regulators are coming, or the redcoats.
The redcoats. Yeah.
Look at her, 16 years old, Sybil Ludington.
On horseback over this road the night of April 26, 1777, to call out Colonel Ludington's regiment to repel British at Danbury, Connecticut.
Ain't that something? I do declare.
Think that French kid.
Very important character.
The Marquis de Lafayette, or Lafayette, depending on where you're from, who was instrumental in his good friend General Washington's defeat of the British at Yorktown in 1781, was only 19 when he joined the Continental Army as a major general in 1777. 19 years old.
19 years old. And if it wasn't for him, we would have lost at York.
Although fabulously wealthy, he was a longtime champion of the downtrodden and opponent of slavery. Despite his epic contributions to American history, few in the United States seem to even remember him today.
Isn't that something? He was a great liaison with France, and we didn't have a whole lot of a navy up against the biggest navy in existence at the time. There he is. Big advocate for the poor. Huge.
Was that Lafayette or was that...
yeah, that's Lafayette.
George Washington's teeth were a lie.
He never chopped down the cherry tree either.
The general's dentures weren't made of wood, as legend has it, but rather of hippopotamus ivory and cow's teeth, held in place by metal springs. Boy, I bet that felt good and looked good.
You know, all cow's that in Valley Forge, too.
He couldn't eat a steak, but he could chew the hell out of some cud.
Oh, my gosh. What do you see? That's when he was young. That's right after the French and Indian War. That's the bottom. He had several pairs. This is another pair. Look at those springs. Look at that.
That gives me nightmares just thinking about it.
This poor man, you know? And he was so big. I know, George. I know.
But his eyes, okay, I was going to say,
I know. He can't believe it either, Steve. He can't believe it either. But this man was, I stopped for a second to tell you this because I delight in George Washington because the dude really tried, you know. I mean, all the, you know, things that you hear about on the side. One of the things I know about him very much, so he had such a temper. He angered very quickly, but he always kept it under control. There's only very few places where, you know, you say where he just lost it, you know, and he lost his military bearing. He was very into doing everything with the right etiquette. He was always studying the right mannerisms. In fact, he even wrote his own book about how to be a proper gentleman. And he was really something else. He was, I believe, 6'3", 225 pounds. And at a time when most men, their, you know, height, because trust me, they were a lot smaller back then. It seems weird, but I know from being in a lot of historical places and on these boats where they had small little slabs up, you know, for them to sleep in. He towered over everybody. I mean, most of these guys were 5'8" at best. And here he is 6'3", and in this uniform of that he would usually design mostly himself. And you can read his letters where he had in specifically what he, you know, the type of buttons to use and the trim and everything else. And to think to have these teeth was constant through his adult life. It's just amazing. Did you know about that, Steve?
I did. And he slept everywhere here in New England.
Everywhere.
Tavern, George Washington slept here. They've got those little signs and plaques.
Here too. All the way through New Jersey, all over the place. I'll tell you what, that you know, I don't know how he got anything done, but you know what? He was really cheeky monkey in battle too. This is a man who had you have to understand, Continental Congress, that was kind of an accident too. It was just like one day they said, you know, maybe we should hear from the other colonies too. Somebody run and go get a couple of people who want to come up here and speak for the entire colony, you know. Then they had to pick people and, you know, that kind of thing. You imagine how this all went down. And where are we going to meet? I don't know. Who's got a room big enough? Oh, right here. It was all kind of an accidental thing, you know, just trying to do everything for everybody. 13 separate colonies who at that time considered themselves, you know, I'm a Virginian. I'm from New England. I'm from Connecticut. That's my country. So it was very odd, you know, to have everybody come together and have to decide to flow together. And they said that once that Declaration of Independence was signed, that's when all the watches synchronized together and all the times were set. And we started trying to tick together as a whole. And it was just, you know, these are big times, you know. If you think about it, look back in history and to think how so many things were so accidental. But with George, He's on the other side, but he's put in charge of this ragtag army. It's basically a bunch of militia. They've never practiced together. They don't have a fighting style. Their fighting style is to hunt and to, ward off Indians who have taught them how to fight very well. They're learning guerrilla warfare from them. I'm telling you, Native Americans were very practical fighters. They didn't line up and rally, arrows and things like that. They hid, they camouflaged, they did all these things. Colonists have had a chance to learn from that. So going up against the British, who learned one way, it's like, you don't understand. You guys are not fighting by the rules. You know what I mean? They were so appalled at getting ambushed in this guerrilla warfare. Yet they're hiding behind trees and shooting at us. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, you read these letters and journals from the young Britons that came over here to fight too. It's astonishing. But here's General Washington. He's in charge of these troops that have no training and everything else, but they have the chutzpah and they're there. And Continental Congress has no power to issue taxes or to buy bullets or gunpowder or any of these things. And pretty much George had to come up with different ways of fighting. And, how do you fight with no ammunition? Well, you gather all the cannon together, point it toward the enemy, and hope they believe you can shoot them. And that actually happened. And they actually did retreat. So a lot of this was luck and just having the cannonballs to do it, I guess. You know what I mean? I guess that's what it comes out. There you go, Steve. Okay, we'll continue.
Washington, he was tough. He was
a tough cookie, man. Don't let the way he's standing there fool you, man. This guy was all man.
Don't let the cow teeth. He could probably wind those up and turn them loose, and they'd.
Yep. This is another one that's fun. There's so much more to this.
The Boston Tea Party had a sequel.
A lot of people don't know that.
On December 16, 1773, Boston's Sons of Liberty dressed as Mohawk Indians and tossed 342 chests of tea from 3 ships into the Boston harbor to protest the taxes imposed in the Tea Act. There were other instances where colonists resisted the unloading of tea due to the taxes imposed, but the Boston Tea Party remains the most well documented. And that's why the Charles River is still dirty, probably. The tea, it was a Chinese green tea.
Sure was.
It wasn't even Earl Grey or whatever anyway.
That's what Mario said. That was the first on top of his head. Yep. There it is. Would you believe it? I mean, it wouldn't have been my first guess, but there it is. And it was, it took a long time. I think it was almost 100 years, like maybe 90 years or something like that, for it to start being called
and
the Boston
fact that they psyoped them and dressed like the Mohicans and they don't know who it was.
Right, exactly. But see, everybody knew who it was. And they all knew who it was because of this man right here. This is Samuel Adams. He's one of my favorite characters there is, and my favorite beer, by the way. So, and here's another cheeky fact. When Samuel Adams came out with its original Boston Lager, on the label, if you remember, was a young man with the sleeves pushed up in the ponytail offering you a frosty mug of it, right? Yeah. That wasn't Sam Adams. That was Paul Revere. Sam Adams would have never been seen with a ponytail or with his sleeves rolled up. This man was just like John Hancock and George Washington, where every button was buttoned. It didn't matter, how hot it was.
That's what they call a dandy.
Ridiculous, a very dandy. Perfect word. A dandy. But they were tough. These guys were tough, but they dressed, and the reason they did it, and I'll tell you what, this is my thought. It's because Britain always looked down on colonists. It didn't matter how much money they had, what they did, what they accomplished, the business they ran. They were always going to be commoners that got lucky in business. They were never going to have, if they got the carriage, they didn't have a matching pair of horses. If they had the matching pair of horses, they didn't have the right, gear. It was never going to be enough the way Britain looked at these gentlemen of Virginia and Boston and, New England and all of these places where they're making and have been, and their families had been for several generations now, making their way in the new colony. They were always seen as a branch off or a younger, almost like an older brother and a younger sibling. You know what I mean? That little kid was never going to quite, be able to outdo the big brother kind of thing. Does that make sense? So they always felt like they had to be extra just to get a little, of the respect. And he was one of those guys. He was fantastic. He was a rabble rouser. He was a terrible brewer. He took over his brewery for his dad. And that's where everybody met. At his place, right outside was the Green Dragon. And that's when the Sons of Liberty started getting together. He was definitely the head of it. And you're about to see a little advertisement he put out in the paper. And basically a call to a flash mob would be equal to today. Meet me at the mall. We're going to do this. And that's how we got people to show up to the Boston Tea Party. Yep. That was handled it was a lot quieter than you would think. They were very calm about it because they were very cautious. Look, they got redcoats all over the place and loyal lists and stuff. So how they acted was going to be reported. And they went up, they broke the lock, which they replaced, and they went up quietly and basically just plopped the cases of tea one at a time into the drink, and then quietly turned, walked out through to everybody raising their hats, and everybody went home. But if you hear about it, later, you think it was the only time. There was many other times where the tea would not be accepted, or they put it in the warehouse and just let it rot and nobody would buy it. And there were other times where they went through the crates of tea in there too. But this was the daddy of them all. Ain't that something?
Yeah.
And it was basically just a willful, we're not, but if you look at Britain's side of it, it's very interesting because Britain's going, okay, well, look, they're going to want the tea. We're going to give the tea to them at a cut cost, real cheap. And now I know why, because it wasn't even theirs. It was the Chinese tea, because they probably looked down on it. I had no idea. It adds to the story. It really does. Because they thought they'd be grateful that the tea would be so cheap, but they put a tax on it. And that's what did it. That's what did it. And, I know it sounds strange, but I don't like being taxed without being able to say anything about it. I don't know. It gets you in the craw, and I guess they'd had enough.
Call the Flash Mob by Sam Adams.
Here it is, right here. And I think it's so odd. You don't have to read it. Go ahead if you want. I have a better copy coming up.
I think. Okay.
Yeah, I have a better copy coming up, but I wanted to show you real close here. If you notice, like in the word crisis at the end, you'll see the S at the end, but there's supposed to be an S in there, but it looks like an F. And something, I know nothing about this. I haven't looked into the writing. I know many times things are spelled different. We spell
words. If you look at preserve, that S is made in the shape of an F. That's some kind of typesetting thing. Because if you look at the actual
right here,
F,
best.
It has, if you look at the F over there in defined, whatever that is.
It looks different.
Looks different than the one that has the, or maybe, I don't know.
Isn't it odd? I first discovered this. Now, again, I'm just guess I'm a novice, but I remember when I was studying the Roanoke,
maybe the typesetter had a lip.
Go. Yeah, a lip.
This morning, precisely at that is best to come out this alarming crisis. Mike Tyson wrote it.
Yeah, Mike Tyson. But it seems like it's only the S that's in the word.
Yeah.
So if it's found inside of the word, like in this word here, best, they're using that F. It's the same type. No, it's the same one. And I noticed it first in Roanoke Island, that disappearance, because they were looking at the rocks that were left behind with the different stuff in it. And that was like one of the first times I realized that even back then I wasn't surprised they were spelling things different, the tis and the these and all that stuff. I understood that, but they did this a lot. And I'm wondering when this changed. It's really interesting. I don't know if anybody in the chat knows it, but I don't have an answer for it. I just think it's neat. Eventually somewhere along the line, it got straightened out. We started putting the damn S in the middle of the word like it's supposed to be. But how did this happen? Because obviously spelled the same. It's like breaking a code or something, which is all in the story of the revolution. So if you like spy stuff, we got it coming. That's something, Steve. Just little differences.
Little things like that.
There's a good copy.
Okay. Monday morning, December 27, 1773. The tea ship being arrived, every inhabitant who wishes to preserve the liberty of America is desired to meet at the State House this morning precisely at 10 o'clock to advise what is best to be done on this alarming crisis. And
there you go.
Replace the F with S's in my teaching.
It's
just kind of strange.
It's almost like doing code, isn't it? Like you're doing a cipher or something. It gets interesting.
But I have seen that in
and
some older
everybody showed up.
documents, but it was, and yeah, the capital S's are okay, but everything else looks like they've got the lowercase s is fine, but
as long as it's on the outside of the word.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's some kind
There's
of
some
weird
rule.
thing.
There's some rule about it, where
And
it's
that 10
it's
o'clock, and
like
it's
the
got the
plural.
O and the apostrophe in there.
Yeah, like
That's
like if it's
tomorrow,
a plural,
that's actually TO, and then there's a dot, and then tomorrow. I've seen some old calendars that would say tomorrow.
Yes, yeah.
Halloween is like that. Hallow apostrophe EEN. I had somebody argue with me, a boss one time, said, "You misspelled that." I mean, no, I didn't. I don't think there's apostrophe there. Oh, there's supposed to be.
Yeah, they're supposed to be. Yeah.
Won $10.
Jewelry, 2 L's. That's still, and I mean, it's amazing to me. I know this has something, and I don't know what the rule is, but I would guess it has something to do with plurals, because if it's a plural, it's the S is on the outside, it's added to, it's not part of the word. If it's part of the word, it's an F.
It's in part of the word, or if it's
crazy.
Capitalized. Who knows?
It's interesting. But it worked. They must have had the decoder ring, because this worked. It was in the morning paper and everybody showed up, and it must have been really amazing times. But keep in mind, folks, that the whole time we're talking about the Revolutionary War, it was only 1/3 of the people. Quite a few people, the other 1/3 just didn't want to be bothered and didn't care and didn't know, and really care much was going on, just how it affected them. And then the other third was really loyal to Britain, didn't understand what all the fuss was about. You see what I mean? That not everybody has this idea of like the whole, country being born felt the same way. Au contraire. But he still had a great turnout. So it was getting going about now with the Boston Tea Party. There's all kinds of different renditions of it. Must have been something, but it wasn't violent at all. They weren't busting it up. They just plopped them in the water.
Deborah Sampson called herself Robert Shirtleaf Sampson, then enlisted in the 4th Massachusetts Regiment of the Continental Army. She served for over a year until a doctor discovered her secret while treating her for an unhealed injury. She was discharged with honor.
Many women, just like the Civil War. Remember, we talked about them in the Civil War too. You think, why in the world would you ever want to? But there she is. And there's her statue. And that's something. And the name she picked, she named herself after a brother who had passed. There's one for you, Steve. When you're ready, take your time.
Okay.
Take your time.
The phrase fog of war first originated in an 1836 poem by MacDonald Clark titled The Battle of Bunker Hill. Due to the type of gunpowder used in muskets and artillery, Revolutionary War battlefields were often engulfed in smoke, making it difficult to see the enemy. The Battle of Bunker Hill was not actually fought on Bunker Hill, but on Breed's Hill, a smaller rise much closer to Boston.
Ain't that something?
Never heard
they
that.
Just, they started fortifying in the dark, and they started fortifying on the wrong hill. And by then they were so good, they just stayed there.
Who's buried in Grant's tomb? Where was the Battle of Bunker Hill fought? On Breed's Hill.
Breed's Hill. Ba-doom, boom. Yep. I guess that's when you can get people. Especially if you set them up like that. That was good, Steve. But yeah, quite... there's a story behind every person, every battle, every war, right, guys?
The Treaty of Paris, signed on September 3, 1783, officially ended the American Revolutionary War. It was a momentous agreement that recognized the 13 colonies as free, sovereign, and independent states. They lived happily ever after. Glad you put that in.
Yeah, George, I'm going to roll my eyes with you, baby.
Yeah.
There you go.
Earlier, I was just kind of stood out of the corner and I saw it. Did his eyes just move?
Yeah. Now he's flirting. But there you go.
Copper Candle, When Johnny Comes Marching Home, Kevin MacLeod, Aspiring, Pixelpay.com, Tinder.com, Ancestry.com, and tons of facts.com. Video by Cisco. There she is, ladies and gentlemen, right up here. in the secret square.
There
little
you
square
go.
up there.
I love this. This is great.
There
Look
we
at
go.
this.
They're going to fight it with Toyotas.
Look at him. Go get him.
Yeah, run.
Some fun facts. Anyway, it's a nice way to spend just before 4th of July, remembering all this stuff. I think it's pretty cool. Hello, Henry. How you doing, honey? A couple other people snuck in here too. Hey, Jack. I have not seen Ted.
Hey, everybody else that I didn't say hi to. Vixen Doe, Jack Kilowatt.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I think I caught
everybody.
Vixen popped in here too.
Thank you card. Thank you for the baby gift. We appreciate that, brother.
Hey, sweet. Tales of the Sonic Voyage is here. Hello.
Hey, Terry Brown. Downtown Terry Brown. Downtown with the discount. What are you doing, Terry Brown? How's your channel doing?
I think I did. I catch everybody. Good. All right. So there's some fun facts now. I'm going to go catch that picture that you sent because I wanted to show everybody that sign. I think it's so cool. And then you tell your story. But what I wanted to show you, we'll give, I know you probably got to take Mulder out or whatever. This is a good, long as about 10 minutes. But this is the one last week I said I was going to show you. That was the two people had an experience at the same time. They were reenactors in different places. And it's just an odd haunting, and it has a lot of different things I haven't heard before. Like really, the ghosts seem to be extremely engaged with these people. It's an amazing haunting or an experience, whatever you want to call it. So this is that one. If I hit the right button, Steve, you want to? Mulder got to go out. I'm going to get some hot water.
Yeah, I've got to go
play this.
Shake the dew off my lily, and I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Let's see if I can get it right. All right, sure. All right, guys. On Moonlight Base, is it? I think it is. I think that's it.
Never has more American blood been shed in battle than during the 4 violent years of the Civil War. More than 600,000 men died long before their time, killed by their countrymen before they could marry, build a house, have children. Some people say the old battlefields are haunted by such men in search of another chance at life. If one of these unquiet ghosts were looking to make use of a sympathetic soul, a living soul that is, it just might be Tim Frederickson, a Civil War reenactor. There are thousands of men like Tim. The Civil War is their passion. They wear the old uniforms, carry real weapons, and march onto blood-stained battlefields into the roar of cannons. Sometimes they can forget where the dead soldiers leave off and where they themselves begin.
I've been in reenacting living history for almost 17 years now. I can't explain the connection, but every time I come out here, they're with me. They're out here on the field.
Who might more easily cross a line of reality than a man who's already crossed a line of belief? One night, as Tim lay sleeping in his bed, the spirit of the Civil War came into his life as it never had before.
I wake up and I hear somebody saying, sir, you've got to get up right now. Just a few months later, I physically felt a hand grab my shoulder and shake me like somebody was right there shaking me. And I know I jumped. I must have jumped a foot because, there's somebody in my house. I'm sitting bolt upright in the bed and there's not a soul there. There's nobody in the room whatsoever. But I physically felt that hand on my shoulder.
300 miles away in Gettysburg, Tim's good buddy Mike Flood was also sleeping. And at the very same moment, something tapped him on the shoulder too.
Someone was tapping on my shoulder. Looked up and I didn't see anybody. Shortly after that, I heard some booming. I thought something was exploding in town. I looked out there, but nobody else seemed to be concerned with it. I had this feeling that somebody was in the room. When I looked up, it was like soldiers standing at the end of my bed. And I could tell they were wearing uniforms. I could see the color of the pants, light blue trousers, and the darker blue jackets. And one guy started speaking to me. He said he was a sergeant with the 116th Pennsylvania. He said, well, we want to talk to you on the battlefield. I said, I'm not going out there. I said, I'm staying in my room. And the other soldier said, well, we're going to see you later. And with that, they turned and left. And I couldn't sleep the rest of the night.
When Tim joined Mike in Gettysburg the next day for a trip to the battlefield, the two friends realized what an amazing coincidence had taken place. After years of merely reenacting the Civil War, it now seemed that Tim and Mike were being invited to join their ghostly comrades. They talked about it over dinner. Tim wanted to go out to the battlefield, but Mike was still too shook up by what had happened the night before.
I mean, I could see in his eyes that there was just, he had no intentions of, even thinking about going out there after dark.
Mike really wanted to go back to his hotel room where it was safe. But the next thing he knew, he was being pulled by a force that he could not resist.
I got this really strange image that I was seeing these dead soldiers on the battlefield. Both Union and Confederate soldiers lying dead in the field.
He just immediately says, we've got to pay the check and go right now. We have to leave right now.
Tim Fredrickson and Michael Flood walked out of an ordinary restaurant in a small Pennsylvania town onto the hallowed battlefield of Gettysburg and into another dimension.
I really could almost feel like there was a charge of electricity in the air.
I knew that there was more than just Tim and I at the site. I looked to my left and I looked to my right, and I got this really strange sensation that people were walking by me.
Before I can say a word, he doesn't even look at me, and the words out of his mouth are, Tim, do you see them? Do you see them?
I knew what I was looking at, but I wasn't sure if anybody else was seeing this.
I'm seeing something that I cannot fathom myself. We are having over 150 men literally appear in front of our eyes, facing us. We're looking at them, and they're staring right through us.
Like a spike, the gaze of the ghost soldiers pinned Mike to the ground.
I wanted to run, but I couldn't.
I said, Mike, we've got to go. Mike, it is time to leave.
Then, suddenly, Mike snapped out of it.
I finally got the courage or ability to move my feet and walk, and we got back to the car, and I peered over my shoulder just a couple times, and it was still they were still standing there, wherever they were. And we got in the car and we left. Like fast.
But this was an encounter they couldn't just walk away from. They needed to know why them. What did it mean?
The majority of these young men died far before their times. And on a hallowed ground like Gettysburg, you're talking like 50,000 men in 3 days.
But maybe they relate to us as doing reenactments and try to live like a real Civil War soldier.
I feel that they may have felt that I was a conduit. I was that conduit that they could use, if you will, to communicate with the other world, to communicate with our world.
But what if communicating with another world becomes a journey of no return? For Tim, the allure of the dead soldier's world is strong. But so is his fear.
I want to reach out to them. But I don't know if I reach out to them and make physical contact with them, what will happen? I don't know if I went over to the other side. Could I even get back?
Mike and Tim were able to keep their feet in our world. This time. The Wild West, a land of violence and short lives.
I was trying to be so careful not to hit the wrong button. So far, so good. Okay. Interesting story. I've never heard another one exactly like it. Right, Henry? Now, there's so much to unpack there. It's not even funny. It's like opening a suitcase that you had to sit on to close because there's just so much in it. And when you open it, here's my theory, and then I'll get Steve's, but I'm going to give him time to get back here. Take your time, Steve. I think that these gentlemen, quite possibly one or both, are drawn to their reenacting and their interest in history and possibly that certain battle. I don't know if they go all over the place or if they just do Gettysburg. I don't know. So many people seem to be drawn to Gettysburg and go past other battlefields to get there. I don't know what the draw is. It's so true for me this way. So, my theory is going to be coded and biased based on that, truly. But if they're drawn there, it is quite possibly that they may very well be reincarnated and were involved in that battle or the Civil War or really any battle. But I want to say the Civil War here because their draw to the battlefield and to reenact and, and their connection and their interest could also be a brighter light, a recognizable soul, a recognizable emotion, with that certain vibe that they recognize because they resonate on it. I don't know. It's like way over my head at this point. Way. I'd love to learn about it. I'd love to hear other people's theories, but this is so different. It reminds me, it's not like Aunt Edna said, and it was even earlier for the other mass hallucination or anything like that. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. I think there's some kind of an energy connection. Hey, Sarah, how you doing, sweetheart? I think there's some kind of an energy connection between these two soul groups. You have the soldiers, the ghosts, the whatever they are. They might not even be stuck there. We can't assume that stuff. They could just be visiting too. But if they are ghosts, earthbound, right, and haven't crossed over, and they're just in this cluster of mixed other entities, wow, it gets deep, But why them? Why that profound? Why that long? So many ghost sightings seems to be like this flit in time, like and gone, or just long enough for them to look at you and then disappear or dissolve into whatever, or walking by and just keep walking, but just dissolve into nothingness. Why so much interaction? I mean, these guys came into his hotel room, I think it was. I mean, it sounded like he came into town and was staying, in town for this reenactment. I could be wrong there. I think the other guy was too. But it could be that they lived in town. I don't know. Don't quote me. The point is they came to try to get him so that he would go with them. Like, come on, we got to go. We got a battle. We got whatever. And I don't even think he was in his uniform and stuff yet. So that must have been a personal connection on an energy level is what I'm thinking, if that makes any sense. Makes sense? Okay. So I don't know what happened. Steve might be... Oh, thank you so much. I didn't mean to leave it up there for so long. Oh, gosh, yeah, instantly. You can feel it as you're driving in, even inside of a car where you're headed in. You're coming in on the highway. You can feel it. It's getting thicker and thicker and thicker, I'm sure you're driving through stuff too, but it's a build. It's a build. Even if you've got stuff on, trying to protect yourself and everything else, it's rough. Imagine what they're going through, I mean, I know mediums that just, they can't go. They won't go. So since Steve is not here, what I'm going to do is I have another one. Well, that one I want him to see. 1 second, guys. Let me look up here to see what I got. I think we can do this one. Give Steve some time. No, that's the one that I want to. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to find it again so I can play you the right thing here. It's the wrong one. And I also want to find Steve's picture.
I'm right here. You don't need my picture. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm going in here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep. I'm going to go ahead. Did you get to see or hear any of that, Steve? I'd love to get your take.
No, I stepped away. I'm sorry.
All right. So basically, it was two.
On the replay.
Oh, it's okay. But it was two separate. It was two. Let me pop back in here for a second because I really just your thoughts. Two reenactors, from my recollection, they both come into town to do this big reenactment at Gettysburg. One guy's in his the hotel room, whatever, night before, whatever, hasn't even put on the uniform yet, gets a visit from a group of Civil War ghosts. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat. That actually are beckoning to him, and he actually hears, come with us or whatever. He gets scared. It's like, hell no, I ain't going with you. And then eventually they leave. The other guy has a similar experience. They go to the same type of thing. They're both reenactors. They know each other from reenacting. They show up at the reenactment the next day, hit the field, and there they are again. And their whole world seemed to shift and change, the whole ambiance of it. And to the point where this one guy was so scared that he's like, what would have happened if I went to them? What if I'd made physical contact? Would I have gone with them? Would I ever been able to get back? I mean, you could see the fear in his eyes. To me, I'm thinking because of their interest in history, because of, them maybe drawn there, maybe it's some kind of bloodline memory, maybe it's some kind of soul memory, maybe they were reincarnated, actually fought there, who knows? But I think there was some kind of energy that they were resonating that these ghosts either recognized or picked up on as a familiar, even if it could be as deep as a soul recognizing a soul. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds agreeable to me. That's exactly what I would think. And I've heard other similar stories, and it occurs during reenactments. There in Knoxville, Tennessee, where I used to live, their big fireworks celebration wasn't the 4th. It's coming up. That's another reason I was gone for a little bit longer.
Okay.
There's fireworks going off here tonight. So
poor Mulder.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah. And poor guy.
Yeah, poor Mulder.
But in Knoxville,
keep talking. I'm gonna find that picture. I can hear you, honey.
They do their big fireworks, used to, and this may have changed, on Labor Day. They call it Boomsday, and they set off. I can't remember if it's off the Gay Street or the Henley Street Bridge there in Knoxville. They have a big, it's the biggest fireworks display in the Southeast. Is how they used to promote it. One of the radio stations promote it, and it's set in time to music, like classic music. They'll play Beatles songs, and then all this will go off in their shapes.
Oh, that's so cool. I love it when they do that. That is so cool.
When people that were downtown, when they were having it, they were having this going on, there's people downtown, you can see it from there. Somebody said that those booms echoing through Knoxville, see, there was big Civil War battle, the Battle of Fort Sanders, right there in downtown Knoxville. That was one of those where they dug a trench and just kept shooting people as they got down in this trench and couldn't get out. It filled up with so many bodies that they were able to walk across this 12-foot trench because there was that many bodies.
Good Lord.
And that whole hill.
Things we do to each other.
Called it Fort Sanders up there. Haunted as you know what.
Right.
But somebody told me that the night of Boomsday, I don't remember what year it was, probably back in the 80s, early 90s, that when those booms started going off downtown, they saw what they thought were Civil War reenactors. They lived in the Fort area, the Fort Sanders area. They saw people run around out there dressed like Civil War reenactors. And then he said, Steve, that wasn't reenactors. That was ghosts. Those booms going off, it reawakened something in these restless spirits. And it's like the battle was going on again down there on the Tennessee River. So Stuff like that goes on all the time. St. Mary's Hospital, that's, or I'm sorry, Fort Sanders Hospital. St. Mary's is down the road. Fort Sanders Hospital. I think it's under a different name now. They've seen stuff like that in there. Seen people in uniform, especially in the basement. And it wasn't even there then. And that'll tie into the other.
I don't know, Vixen.
I'm going to tell you.
Oh yeah. I don't know, Vixen. You mean the man that was so scared he was going to get pulled into the other side by the ghost of Getty? You know, I can't tell him he wouldn't.
No, I didn't get to watch it, but is that the one where they were reenacting and they thought another reenactor was handing them some?
No, that's a good one though. Tell it.
And,
Yeah.
I don't really know all of it. I heard you tell it, but yeah, there was a reenactment going on.
It was
these
cartridges.
guys were had a place. You know, they were fortified. You know, they had behind a rock.
Devil's Den.
They're holding the line. Devil's Den. There's that name. Mm-hmm. And somebody come up and said, "Is it here? If you run out of ammo, I've got some ready to go." And it was some shells, some 45 caliber shells packed with wadding powder and mini balls like they actually used in the Civil War. Pressed them into the guy's hand, and he just happened to notice, hey, this is live ammunition. This isn't blanks or whatever we're supposed to be firing. This is the real deal. Well, they looked around. They couldn't find the guy that gave it to him. Nobody knew those people, where he was, where he came from, nothing. And they analyzed that, and it dated to the period. It was authentic. Never been fired. Cartridges or whatever rifle it was with the black powder, the wadding, and the mini ball already in there, ready to go.
Yep, absolutely true. Same story, very similar to again, Rita, and I'm on board with this whole idea that the theory that the reenactments stir up this activity, because why wouldn't it? You know, because you've got the sounds, the people, the yelling, the whole thing,
and
the conversations.
Those spirits, they don't know that it's a reenactment. I mean, they're probably thinking, why would anybody be reenacting a battle? You know, this is the battle. And I heard another story.
You're living it too.
The Powell area of East Tennessee along Beaver Creek, and Beaver Creek's got all kinds of hauntings all up and down the length of it. It starts there in West Knox County and goes all the way up into Virginia, I think. And that whole creek is haunted. But this was in the Powell area of East Tennessee. A guy was just headed through there and saw out in a field there by the creek a bunch of what he thought was reenactors. He said there was, like a whole troop. They had horses and things in there. He went up the road, did whatever he needed to do. 10, 15 minutes, comes back. He's going to stop and check it out. And he said there was tents, there was cooking fires. He said it was the real deal.
Work.
They were this very, very particular looking reenactment. They'd gone to a lot of pains to make all the details, make it look real. 10, 15 minutes, he comes back, he's going to stop and check it out. It's not there. And he said, I went up and down that 2 or 3 times. They didn't get up and move. They didn't break camp. They didn't put their fires out. He said, I parked across the road, got out, walked all the way down to the creek. There was no evidence anybody had been there with fires or horses or tents or anything. But he said they were in full Civil War uniform. Absolutely. I don't remember if it was north or south. He said which side, but that was back.
Yeah, Jim said that they were just over there doing outside of Waynesboro just a couple weeks ago. And they're trying to set up now. It's just in its infancy now. They're trying to do reenactments and bring people's knowledge of the exit of Lee's exit out of Gettysburg. He came through Waynesboro, stopped there and let Trigger drink from the well in the town square and all that stuff. And they had another skirmish because they've got people coming this way. They got Union coming this way, Union coming this way, and of course. Meade took his foot off of him and let him leave because let him up easy.
Somewhere there was a skirmish because somebody let their horse drink out of the water that was for people. Have you ever heard that story?
I'm sure. I probably 100 stories.
People water, and some soldier, general, or somebody stopped and let his horse drink out of it, and that was it. That shit basically, and ran him out of there. Your horse is fouling our water. Yeah. Then a lot of those water troughs that they had out in the Old West, everybody drank out of it. Horses.
I know, isn't it crazy? You think about the stuff they
dipping their hats down in there and drinking out of it. You want water bad enough, you'll drink it. But
absolutely, you're hungry enough, you'll eat anything. These stories, Ladies
They
and
run
gentlemen, I've
some.
been reading about what these people ate and how. There's one story of a young soldier out there at Valley Forge come across. Now, how in the world he comes across an oxtail that had been discarded? You know, I don't know how one's walking along a path and all of a sudden finds the tail of an ox
Hey,
just
look,
laying there.
oxtail.
You know,
I'll split it with
he
you.
didn't explain that part of it. He just said he boiled it up and cooked it and ate it, and he was so glad. And the way they write, they sound like they're right. It sounds like Robert Frost or something.
Yeah.
Their
It makes you
language
wonder,
is so
was it
flowery.
discarded, or was there some poor ox somewhere that was missing
Where's
its
It's
tail
like
after?
Eeyore lost his tail, man. And this poor kid ate it, and he was so disappointed because he knew it wasn't going to stay down. And the way he describes how it exited his body is just, it's poetry. I'm telling
I
you.
read somewhere
But it's
that
sickening at the same time. It's crazy,
a lot of deaths during the Civil War were due to infection and dysentery.
Yeah. Yep. It's all fun and games till somebody
You
gets
can
dysentery.
literally poop yourself to death. And
2 words. Terrible.
people that had been shot and things, a lot of them didn't die of getting shot. They died of the medical treatment, the amputations and things. I mean, they cut your leg off with a saw, and that old phrase, biting the bullet, there wasn't, that was you bit on a lead bullet.
Yeah. Actual bullets. I've seen bullets. I've actually had them on my hand with teeth marks in them.
Yep.
Folks, you don't want to touch certain things. You just don't want to touch. And we're not going to go down the list, but Scott's life. Look at this, Steve.
Melissa
throwing money at us. Thank you so
Scott.
much, honey. Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you.
Show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, the chat's a huge part of the show. Napoleon. I'm trying to figure out why Ian's throwing Napoleon at me. Napoleon. Well, I know he was friends with Lafayette, and he tried to get Lafayette to come over to him, but Lafayette loved George Washington a little bit too much. He loved his fighting style. He loved his mannerisms, loved the way he carried himself, that he was a proper gentleman. He thought it was amazing how he took this rugged, wild land and tamed it and called it Virginia. That kind of stuff. It's like the way these people thought about each other was just amazing. It's like, wait a minute, there's other people involved. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's crazy. But thank you, Scott, very, very much. Just trying to catch up here. There's so many gems in here. But that's all I know about Napoleon. Okay. Dysentery during the Battle of Waterloo. Yes, he did. And what a inconvenience it was too. And he also he was killed by wallpaper. Ian.
Yeah, that was a fact I'd never
heard.
Death
by wallpaper. Death by wallpaper. I'm full of useless information. Let's see what else. And I'll tell you what, the Revolutionary War stuff really brings it all out, because there's so much in here. I mean, it's not just the birth of a country and all this other stuff, but it's espionage and spy rings and, living in a town where you're actually living with the enemy. Everybody's behind enemy lines. And it's just, the intrigue.
Like during the Civil War, when the soldiers would show up. I think, didn't they do that in the Revolutionary War too, where the British showed up and say, hey, we're staying with you. What's for dinner?
Yeah, forced quartering, it's called. They were forced to quarter. And that was a result. Here's another tidbit. Get your get your bingo cards out.
There'll be a quiz afterwards.
The Boston Tea Party, that was the one, because it got so much attention, basically propaganda. That's what Sam Adams was, propagandist. I mean, he was amazing at his propaganda. I mean, at such an early time, he knew. He's like, look, when you're out there and you're talking to the soldiers and they got their bayonets out and stuff like that, kind of lean into them and say, ouch, and then, make a big stink about it. That kind of thing. Just we're trying to because they had to turn an entire town to their side. You got people, merchants there that they wouldn't shop for them. And I mean, all that stuff was going on. Women they had to say, I'm not going to get no more material, no this, no thread, no, everything had to be made again. So everybody had to make themselves over, as well as figure out what can they do. But a lot of wonderful things were born out of that necessity, and people and heroes, everyday people turning into heroes because they were pushed and they leaned into that torpedo. And I think it's wonderful. But with the Boston Tea Party getting such a blast with Sam Adams' help, big time, and Paul Revere, they were both kind of working together on that, getting the word out. They some of the results of that was it caused Boston, Massachusetts to get to be put under martial law, basically. And the king sent troops over there. I can't remember how many, But now they're mingling around the town, all these lobster backs. And I hear that they weren't even wearing red. I heard they were wearing green, but you be the judge, so many things with the red coats and stuff like that. That's just, it's almost impossible to believe that that wasn't true, but who knows?
Yeah.
And so now the quartering, that one of the things was they had to, now they were responsible for the upkeep of these soldiers. If you're going to cause them to be here, you're going to feed them, you're going to clothe them, you're going to take care of them, you're going to wash their clothes, you're going to put up with them living in your house, even if it's a one-room cabin. Here, guess who's coming to dinner? Yes, quartering. And it's amazing, isn't it? Can you imagine today? Here's your token soldier. You're not responsible for him. Here's his meds.
I would say, well, you can stay, but if you get dysentery, don't blame me.
Right. And don't look too long at the wallpaper either.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell your story?
Wallpaper. Yeah. Did you get those pictures up here?
Yep, I do. Which one do you want first?
Let's do the library.
Let's do the sign. You want to do the sign? Okay. Here we go, folks.
Just not far from where I live, there's a little town called Leicester. That's how you pronounce that. That's the Public Library Museum, and I love that sign there. But Leicester is just a strange little town. There's so much haunted stuff there. All those buildings are haunted. And it's not so much the buildings, although there's some history here. Leicester was incorporated, I believe, 1713. I believe that's the right date. But it's been around for a while anyway. And there's a museum there. I'm going to go and film some stuff there. So at some point,
the sign.
I'll have that. But yeah, I want to know the story of the sign. Now, you would expect to see something
maybe
like
a local artist
in Salem, Mass. And that's carved. You can't really tell it here, but that's done in relief. It's not painted on there. It's carved in the wood.
Oh, wow.
But
that's even better.
Just a couple of doors down from the library is this house. And that sits off the road. You're actually driving by that house would be on your right. And Nicole went to school with a young man. He lived in that house, and you can't really tell unless you drive past it and look back behind it. But it goes way back. The lot does in there. And he said that he would see Revolutionary War soldiers, people in uniform. I don't remember if it was the Brits or the Americans or whatever, but he would see them out in those woods behind. It sounds like spectral figures of him. But that little town, it's a small, tiny little place. There is a Dunkin' Donuts there, and I
love. This is a beautiful little house. I love wraparound porches. I love a wraparound porch.
But there's several places there where they've seen things, heard things. But it's the land. It's not. I mean, there's newer buildings and things that are haunted.
Absolutely.
But I don't know what went on there. There's that I know of. I need to talk to the town historian. There's no monument for a battle or anything there that I know of, but there was all kinds of little skirmishes in places. I mean, you're traveling to the next battle and you run across the opposition in the woods. You just, I don't know,
that's it.
A trip. And
that's exactly, absolutely.
The Civil War was
exactly what happened.
All kinds of tiny little skirmishes. In East Tennessee, it's dotted with them. I've found Civil War relics just out in the woods, not anywhere near a known battlefield or battleground.
Well, they stopped, they ate, they had a fire, they caught rabbits, they cleaned the rabbits, they had lunch. It's amazing to think of all the stuff they had to go through, and just we basically touched on a lot when we were talking about Lewis and Clark last week, because we'd say they get in the canoe, they go down the river, then they'd pull over, they'd go hunting, they'd get dinner, they'd set up, they'd sleep for the night, they get back in the canoe, they start again, they pull over, they basically like we do going down the highway, pull over to the rest stop, go to McDonald's, stop over at the the Cracker Barrel,
let's
whatever.
Stop and catch a rabbit and skin it and cook it and eat it, and then we'll be on our way. Yeah, that
just like us, Steve.
So they didn't have a lot of rations and things, and I'd say they ran out of them pretty quick when they did. And those guys had to fend for themselves.
Rough, man. That's why they stopped in the wintertime during the Revolutionary War. They just basically didn't fight because, think about it, it's not even, you hear many, of course, all about Valley Forge, and you hear about the famous winter soldier, the summer soldier, winter soldier out of Common Sense, Thomas Paine. Beautiful words. Beautiful. His stuff is so inspiring. Valley amazing.
Forge that froze to death. There were people that froze to death.
There were blood footprints in the snow from them marching, and that's now you're getting very close to December And when that whole Christmas Eve thing happened, where they got all the Hessians and stuff, again, one of George Washington's cheeky little monkey things. It's not, he did this so many times. I mean, he had to get color outside of the lines. He had to, because he wasn't getting any money. He wasn't getting supplies. I mean, that Christmas, you wouldn't believe it, but here's John Hancock, the richest man in Boston, right? And, you know, part of the Continental Congress, where he's writing letters back and forth. He spoke a lot to John Hancock. It's like, you got to do something. My men don't have supplies. They have no shoes. They have no food, no provisions. What's going on? Hello, is anybody there? You know, that kind of thing. And what does John Hancock send him? A barrel of his wife's salted fish. And, you know,
they were probably thankful to have it.
He was. George Washington penned a letter back, a thank you letter, you know, and he said in the most eloquent manner. I read it 3 times, and I can't tell you whether it was sarcasm or not. I mean, he was one of those people. He wasn't as good at it as Ben Franklin.
Was. Yeah, Ben Franklin was the genius.
He was the genius at it. But George Washington was a close second. And I don't know if you guys know that about him. I mean, he was really something else, and he was very stern, and he wanted to get the job done. He was just getting a lot of bad luck, you know. So, you know, when you hear about, well, George didn't win too many battles, this didn't happen. You got to hear about the ones he did. And I'll tell you, somebody else is going to surprise you in this series, Benedict Arnold. You're going to want to hate him. You're going to want to hate him, and you probably will, but you're going to love him a little bit too, you know, and you're going to be very proud of his leg, Steve, apparently. Because at one point in time, it was actually stated that they were going to.
That everybody knows you're taught school is not exactly how things were. How much of that, you know, goes on.
Oh my gosh, right? You know, where, you know, everything gets stretched and exaggerated, you know, things that
we've had a couple centuries worth of it.
Right. You know, but we're so used to doing it with the paranormal and trying to reverse engineer these ghost stories and UFO abductions and Bigfoot sightings and dogman attacks and all this other stuff. History's a piece of cake, because facts are facts. You know, if you go back and you read a journal and George Washington says he was in love with Mary, and an author 100 years later said, no, he really liked Sue. And I'm like, I'm reading all these love letters to Mary. It looks to me like you really like the woman. You know what I mean? How come you're not talking about Mary? You know, it's, you know, I just made all that up, but isn't that scary? So on top of that, it's just, you know, look, facts are facts. You know, here's one. Betsy Ross probably didn't make the first American Revolutionary flag. You know who did? Some guy in the Navy. No. Because at one point in time, you know, they didn't have we didn't have an armada. We had the Spanish Armada. You had the great British naval. It's just amazing what, you know, and we helped build it all because the reason they had such high straight masts was our pine trees over in the new country, you know, the one nobody was using until we got there. So it's amazing how much part of that. But here's the thing. You got to have a flag, because when you're out there floating out in the sea, people got to know who you are. And they wanted to make sure that people knew that they were no longer hiring pirates to be privateers, because that's how they made an instant navy. They just hired pirates, you know, and they were supposed to split the booty that they got 50-50, supposed to. But when you hire pirates,
there's a handling charge.
You get pirates.
What about the story? I think the lady's name was like Barbara Fritchie or Pritchard or something like that. Shoot if you must, this old gray head, but leave the country's flag alone. I can't remember.
Oh my goodness. I hadn't heard that one in a long time, Steve.
Yeah, that just popped
knocked the dust off of that one. I don't know, but I'll certainly look into it.
Do you remember hearing that? I remember them teaching us that in school.
I do. But I can't recall anything else.
But spare the country's flag or something.
Right,
I think it rhymed.
Oh, wow.
But
wow.
I've heard that it was Betsy Ross, but it wasn't Betsy Ross. It was somebody else.
Well, I was just going to say Betsy. I was just going to say, not Betsy Ross, but I was going to say, I was thinking Dolly Madison, because I know she ran in the White House as it was burning and saved the portrait of Washington. Remember the unfinished portrait where it's like the portrait's there, but part of it's not finished? She saved that. And one of the only original parts, believe it or not, everything's an illusion, of that the White House, and most of the White House is under a baseball park down the street, because when what's his name redid it, tore everything up. But they left one room. You can still see the charred burn marks. I can't remember, it's the green room or the yellow room or whatever mural. I think it's a mural room. that they left intact. And some of the other stuff is intact too, but there's also a very famous picture of what they think is Lincoln's ghost standing in the rubble of that. I don't know if I can find it, but that got pretty popular about 10 years ago. I think.
Patrick Henry is attributed to saying, "Give me liberty or give me death."
Give me death.
Never said it.
Yeah. He
actually
wrote
at
it.
A party.
Yeah.
And he said, "Give me Libby or give me Beth." I just made that one up.
He had a little too much mulled wine.
Patrick Henry.
Too much.
I
thought you were going with the truth
with that one.
You got me because I thought you were going with the truth because he never said it in committee. He wrote it in a letter.
Yeah, he did,
and they made him say it in committee. I'll give you another one, Nathan Hale. And this is kind of sad. And I'll go deeper into Nathan Hale when I get into the whole spy stuff. But he was a young man that wanted to do his part, and he thought he could handle being a spy. He was a young teacher. And he felt like he was losing his chance to do something because everybody else was involved in this in one way or another. And he thought he could throw his hat in the ring, you know. And he is famous for saying, when he got caught and they hung him, they wrote his last words as being, "I regret that I have but one life to give for my country." He didn't say it. And the sad part is, it actually tells you how great another man was, and it was George Washington. I personally believed either Talmadge or his second in command. And he said, "We are not going to let this young man go out like that. We're going to have him say something profound." These people went to plays all the time, more even so, I think, than we go to movies. I mean, you know, it was nothing. We've said before that Lincoln went to like 3 or 4 plays a week. It was nothing. This is all they had. They didn't have TV. So when George was able, he was always about doing all the social stuff. And he had just seen a play where that was stated not very long before that. And he was the one who said, "Put this in so that young man will live on." And raise it was almost like the death would have more impact on the spirit of the people to be involved. Does that make sense? That's what George Washington thought. I thought that was kind of cool.
And another one we need to look into, and we could do a whole episode on him, Aaron Burr.
Oh, Aaron Burr.
A total maniac.
Yeah.
He's the one that dueled with Hamilton. And
Hamilton's an asshole.
And Hamilton shot back.
That whole play is a lie.
The tree limb above Burr's head. But every place that Burr is associated with, especially Octagon House and places like that, is haunted. Very, very haunted by his spirit. So we can do a whole episode on Aaron Burr.
Oh, I'd love to. Maybe as a finale or something at the end of this whole Liberty thing. So again, I invite you all to watch that. I want to make sure that you know what we're doing. I'm going to ask the mods if they can. I know the ones that were here last night have it. I will make sure you get the link. But this Liberty, in fact, I'm going to do it right now. Ooh, pray I don't hit the wrong button.
Hey, there's an idea. So make your own tea and call it Liberty.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
There you go.
Somebody hasn't used that yet? We need to jump on that. We need to jump on that.
I get 10%. Cisco gets 10%. You heard it here first.
Oh,
this is dated and timestamped. Liberty for the patriot and all of us. Have your own tea party.
There is your link, my friends. This is totally free. It is, I believe, 6 episodes. Each episode is an hour. If you are interested in getting a distraction from this crazy world and you want to look back at the things we did when things got crazy then and get some inspiration or some strength or some hope or just, heck, be entertained. This is a great series. It was done in 1997 by PBS, and I'm shocked at how good it is. They've got all the different actors, everything that the actors say, just sitting there. It's almost like the narrator is interviewing people that at the time, in real time. And there's everything they say, they either wrote themselves in a letter or a document or otherwise. And each actor, I watched some of the backstory of it, really looked into the characters they were playing. And in some cases, you don't have a lot, on what that personality was or what they really look like because you have paintings, you don't have any snapshots or video, So it's very interesting. It's free. It's there in the archives. We're going to watch 2 episodes. Lynn and I have already, of course, watched the first 2. So if you want to catch up with us, and the first episode that Lynn and I do together, we'll be discussing those 2 episodes of Liberty. And it's the beginning of the first rumblings of the Revolutionary War. It's extremely well done. You're going to hear factoids that you've never heard anyplace else. I just think it's wonderful. And it's just history for history's sake. There doesn't seem to be any push anywhere. The next thing we're going to is then we're going into the 3 episodes of, I think it's 3, of Sons of Liberty, which now shows you a historical rendition of, and that is also available free on multiple different outlets. I don't know if they're all available in your country or whatever, but we're doing it like a book of the month. We're going to do it all summer. And at the very end, maybe we'll do Aaron Burr. When we get done with Sons of Liberty, we are going to do the series Turn, the Culper spy ring, and Andrew Woodhull and George Washington as the master spy ringleader, and all the wonderful things they did to try to get messages back and forth, and how actually I think that tight circle really changed the outcome of the war. At that time, like I said, they had to color outside the lines, and I'm telling you, it's inspirational, educational, entertaining. And if you want to go along for the ride, I'm trying to find different ways that everybody can do it for free. And if you can't see it, I'm also going to try to come up with some stuff like some stills and other things to kind of walk us through it. And Lynn doesn't know that much about it. She knows a little surface information. So I thought it'd be cool to have live conversations about it with you, the chat, and her. And I think it'll be fun to take another look at very important part of our history. Steve, what do you think? Fun, huh?
Oh, it sounds like a good time.
Sounds fun, right? Like a book of the month, but you don't have to buy the book. You could just come for the conversation. We'll chat about it, All right. So I have one here for Steve, because Steve, it was the first time I ever, with all my Civil War stuff, the first time I ever really heard how deep this story was. I heard it out of this man right here, Mr. Steve Stockton.
Uh-oh.
And it's one of his favorites. So when I found it, I just had to grab it for tonight. So let me see if I can do all the right things. Ignore this guy. Here we go.
Along the border between Georgia and Tennessee lies the Chickamauga battlefield.
Oh, love Chickamauga. Been there. Scary, scary, scary place.
Bloodiest contests of the Civil War. On these fields where thousands marched and died, the legendary ghost of Old Green Eyes has also been seen, roaming in a variety
there you go,
of
Steve.
forms.
Love this story. Love this story.
Snodgrass Hill, the tower, and everything have been all over that place.
Because it walked. Now, the mists that rise early in the morning, they drift. One moment you're looking at it, next moment it's over here. This walked, just like you and I.
The Battle of Chickamauga took place in September 1863, part of a grueling Union campaign to gain control of Chattanooga. The mountainous terrain made for difficult marching, and a year-long drought meant water was scarce. Most soldiers fought the battle on a single quart of water until their tongues were swollen from dehydration. In just 2 days of fighting, 34,000 men died. For years, there's been a fable that 2 green glowing eyes roam Chickamauga. Some say they are the eyes of a horse or tiger. Others say they are the eyes of a Confederate soldier who was decapitated during battle. Still others say Old Green Eyes was around long before the Civil War and was seen moving among the dead during a lull in the fighting. For Chickamauga's retired historian Edward Tinney, Old Green Eyes became far too real early one morning back in 1976 during an anniversary of the battle. It was around 4 or 5 a.m. Edward was walking alone down the deserted battlefield roads, checking on the reenactors who were camping on the grounds.
And as I was walking down, the moon is still out, and you can see just the same as daylight. I noticed someone coming toward me. I thought it might be one of the reenactors. But not knowing for certain, I moved over to the other side of the road. And the closer it came, the more apprehensive I got, because it didn't look normal. It didn't look human.
Edward could see that the figure was wearing an old-fashioned topcoat and had long, stringy hair. Soon, they were separated by only a few feet.
It turned to me, I turned to it. When it turned to me, it began to smile. Now, I'm not going to say it had pointed teeth, but it had a grin on it that said, "Drop dead."
Almost as soon as they had passed each other, a car came around the bend. Edward was walking backwards by then, keeping his eyes on the figure. As the headlights of the car illuminated the road, something bizarre happened.
It never looked back at me. After it got parallel with me, it looked forward and kept walking up the road. And when the lights hit it, it dissolved. It vanished. What happened to it? It didn't come back across the road on my side. I would have noticed it. It didn't go into the woods because the undergrowth of that area is pretty thick right there. So he could have gone in there, and where'd he go?
I believe him, Steve.
Edward Tenney has never seen the figure again, though he is not sure what exactly he saw. He is convinced it was not of this world. The younger generation of park staff says Old Green Eyes is just a story that inspires teenage pranks. But one administrator admits that odd things do happen on the battlefield. Buck Duggar first visited Chickamauga in the fall of 1978, just 2 years after Edward Tenney's experience. Again, it was near an anniversary of the battle. Buck's ROTC group was running training courses throughout the park. Buck was checking the course early one morning when he heard the sounds of horses, though there were no horses to be seen.
You could hear the horses, you could hear the breathing, you could hear them riding by. And what amazed
It's a weird
us was,
feeling.
especially me, was it was not an easy ride like someone riding through a tranquil park. It was someone riding hell-bent for leather.
Buck assumed that there must be riding stables nearby and gave it no more thought. 20 years later, a new job with the National Park Service brought him back to Chickamauga. He was startled to discover that no such riding stables have ever existed. Buck questioned how he could have heard so many horses. His trepidation grew as he realized that he had heard the sounds in places where horses would have been used in the actual battle.
When I was working close to where the trains area would be, the mixture of sounds included wagons and livery and other things, a lot of clanking sounds. We were along the battle line. It sounded like the hoofbeats were a lot faster, a lot harder.
Another strange experience increased Buck's uneasiness. It happened while he was helping install a new phone system in his office building, which is located on the battlefield. That evening, he was alone after hours.
As I sat there working, the superintendent's telephone speaker came on with a dial tone just blaring in his office. So I got up and went in and turned the phone off. As I turned to come back in my office, out his door into the secretary's office, her phone speaker came on also. So I walked over and through his office and turned hers off too.
As Buck turned to leave the secretary's office, the purchasing agent's phone in the next room began buzzing. When he turned that one off, the phone at the neighboring desk lit up. By then, the chain of phones had led Buck in a circle, leading back to his office. For a moment, all was quiet. Then the speakerphone in his office lit up. As he walked in to turn his phone off, he suddenly felt very strange.
I was thinking it was going to be very difficult to reconcile this with what I know is fact. There are no ghosts, and I don't believe in ghosts.
According to Buck, the phone lines are not connected in a way that would allow them to come on in a circular pattern. Still, he tries hard to convince himself that there is a logical explanation for what happened.
And I'm sure that it was a milliamp drop in the telephone system that caused those to occur. I'm sure that's what it is. I'm sure that's what it is, because I still have to work here at night. So that's the only thing it can be, because I don't believe in ghosts.
Is there something unique about the Civil War that has branded these battlegrounds? Can the deaths of soldiers leave a residual presence?
There is no literal way that an event, no matter how tragic, stamps itself upon a place independent of people knowing about it.
There's nowhere you can go on this planet
These people.
whether there hasn't been some sort of tragedy, some sort of attack, some sort of pain. Now, why should the world not be full of these haunting experiences, apparitions, ghosts, footsteps?
Critics argue that stories such as Old Green Eyes show the power of suggestion. Once a haunting is rumored, people begin to look for experiences, eventually fulfilling their own expectations. A sense of tragedy permeates many Civil War sites. The landscape, houses, and memorials are all reminders of the carnage that divided the nation. To many, these hauntings reflect the tremendous impact the war had on our society and our grief at what occurred.
Today, there is still continuing interest in the American Civil War, but not only because of family participation. Many people can trace just a couple of generations back to the era of the Civil War, but also it was a war between Americans. It was a war between the North and the South.
I know how all of that is part of our national psyche. It is important to us, and those deaths mattered. But they are not, no matter how much we wish it were so, they are not proof of any survival of the spirit. They are
Look how
much
miserable
more a
he
comment
looks.
on us, our needs, our emotions, our respect for the dead, than they are in any way evidence that we live on after we die.
I beg to differ.
Individuals who are immersed in Civil War settings, such as historians and reenactors, may simply be identifying with and reacting to the horrors of the war.
The whole ambience invites this type of experience, especially if you are creative, if you are a fantasy-prone individual. The ambience and the emotion and identifying with this drama in the past invites this type of experience.
If you want to have the hair on the back of your neck raised, or if you want to have the sense or feeling of having been there, there are plenty of stories, plenty of soldier accounts that are real.
Even for the skeptical, though,
They don't want
line
you to
between
believe,
past
folks.
and present is sometimes difficult to distinguish.
Don't believe it.
And for many, it's hard to believe that the soldiers who lost their lives in such a dramatic conflict are fully at peace.
There you
The
go.
love that a person has for his wife, his children, his family is an extraordinarily strong bond. And to leave this earth in such a traumatic fashion and never get to say goodbye is a very difficult way to end a life.
That I agree with. My opinion. There you go. All right, guys. I think that's a good way to put that, to end that. I left that last bit on because I want to be fair. Because although I can't imagine being in that spot where you just don't believe anything, you say, well, I remember earlier in another show, that one gentleman in the tan suit, he was saying about, well, when you shut off a light bulb, the energy doesn't go anywhere. Well, I don't think that's right. The light may go out, but the energy went somewhere. It goes back into, you just cut off the extension of it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist anymore. So I feel bad for people that don't. They can believe in so many things, but they don't believe that love is such a strong bond, or confusion, or that essence of a human being wouldn't be drawn to another energy they recognized, or a living human being, even for a moment, where our worlds just kind of bleed together for a second. However you want to describe it, I believe in it. I don't believe in mass hallucination, although I do agree a little bit with what they said about, if you are seeking it and you are looking for it and you're connected to it and you're going there and your energy and your intent is going there, hoping you'll see something, or going there to help, or going there to investigate, I believe you bring a different energy with you, and you already have that open willingness to accept and to believe. So I do believe that that would make more experiences happen. That part makes a little sense there, because it changes everything about your energy. But because I know the opposite is true, Steve, and I know you agree with this, when you a negative person walks into a seance, it can bunk up the whole thing.
Yep.
Just one.
Yep.
So there's something to this energy thing, folks, and nobody could ever convince me otherwise.
That brought something else in with them.
Right. Exactly. So much. There's so much, you can't paint it with a broad brush. Steve and I have been doing this for 6 years now, because we've been saying 50 for 10. So the math adds up.
Yeah, between the both of us, we've got over 100 years experience in this stuff.
And I can tell you something's going on. I can't tell you all the answers to all the questions. That's for damn sure. But I tell you this, something going on. And it's not all one thing, and it's all connected. I'm pretty safe in saying that, right? So, but anyway, I think that's a heck of a night full of ghost stories, the Civil War, Revolutionary War, all these fun facts. So if you like that and you were intrigued, I just heard from Lynn. She has watched the first episode of Liberty, and her first reaction was, I didn't know George Washington was so darn good looking. I was used to always seeing.
All right, now, Lynn.
I know. She said, because that's it. You get so used to seeing these guys in their later part of life. In the beginning, just like us, we were younger. We were just trying things out. We were trying to, find our what lane we wanted to be in, and how far we wanted to go, and what we're willing to do to get there, Yeah. So I think it's going to be a lot of that, that exciting thing was like, wow, I had no idea, or I have a new respect for this or that. And I'm sitting smack dab in the middle of it. And so is Steve. Everything we're going to be talking about happened right up into this area, but from me to Steve and back again, basically. And maybe I can go to a couple of places too. I don't know how all that work out, but it's going to be a nice summer. It's going to be a nice little distraction. I hope you come aboard the crazy train of Liberty. So, and we're going to have some fun and learn some stuff. And you guys are going to teach us stuff, and, bring all your knowledge and your questions, and we'll try to figure it out. Fireworks going off, Aunt Edna.
We'll learn something, whether you like it or not.
Yep. Harper's Ferry is the same way. Gosh, it's so beautiful. So beautiful, just gorgeous. So that link is in there, guys, right up here. Let's see if I can pin it. Can't pin it. I don't know. I can't copy it, but I'll get it for you again. Mods, if you have it, throw it up again. Please throw up my PayPal if you've got that too. Listen, times are rough. I'm not asking you to do it. If you want to go in and you can give a comment underneath a video, I'll answer your questions if you have any. If you have stuff you want to go over or you think should be included in this time, we're looking at Liberty, the beginning of the American Revolution, Sons of Liberty, and then Turn, the Culper Spy Ring. And I think that's a great way to end it all. It's going to be fabulous. They're great shows. I can tell you, I'm no historian, but I can tell you some of in there where they took 3 characters and made them one, where they took a little liberty, stretched the truth a little bit, added a fact for no reason or anything like that. I can try to do as much of that as possible. I'm going to try to get a couple.
Literary license. That's what
try to get a couple authors in here and stuff like that. But most of these are very much like Titanic. Everything going on around it is true, but some of the names have been changed to protect the innocent. some of them have been just made up to try to get you to the next thing too, and we can talk about that as well. But there's so much interesting stuff in there. Steve, what do you got going on this week besides waiting on this lovely little baby?
Waiting on that baby. 9 weeks and 6 days tomorrow.
Yep.
Over on Tales Untold, I've started a new series called Dark Tales from Every State. The first episode came out today. Alabama. Go over there and check it out. You'll
True,
hear in
Anna.
that one,
So
you'll
true.
hear about what did I write about over there? I just went blank. I know the Ghost of Helen Keller, the
Good point,
Red-Eyed
baby.
Creature of Morgan County, and I can't remember what the first one was. I can look here real quick and tell you.
Such good points, guys.
Anyway, you'll like it. And like I said, that's the first of a series. Also got my Amish witchcraft series over there, and more tales of feral people. I've covered Appalachia, California, the Great Smokies, and the latest one in West Virginia. That's some good storytelling over there, if I do say so myself, if you like to hear stuff about the possibility.
You've been doing great things over there too. I love what you've done with the channels. I really do.
Channel.
Always quality.
Missing Persons Mysteries on the way.
And Richard's saying the Goat Man.
That was the first one. I don't
There you go. There you go. There you go. There's the Sons of Liberty link for free if you want to watch it. Look, folks, if you want to see these guys at their best in their young 20s and stuff like that, you're going to fall in love with one of them, I'm telling you. Or you're going to wish you know, that you could be back in the time. And I want you to think about that when you think about how they were when they lived in these towns, Steve. Because you got all this going on around you. How could you not get, jump in one way or another? And it's a great tale of people coming into their own as well. And I think we've all gone through a time here lately where we're doing that too. Not everybody's doing what they were doing 5 years ago. People change things and they look back and go, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it.
Ago, you couldn't have convinced me by any means that
I'm serious.
Where I am now, married and with a baby on the way, a son.
I mean, you and I have seen some stuff together, my friend. I mean, look back when I was just thinking back then, because this is, again, I'll say it, July 1st. It's 161st anniversary tonight. 161 years ago, the first battles of Gettysburg were just coming to a close, and young men were, on both sides, and trying to bed down after this thing, and they still had 3 more days to go, really. And it ended up being in Waynesboro. Now, that's what I was going to tell you real quick. Waynesboro, Jim Wyrick and the guys down there at the Hoover House, the Wonderful Berries, and everybody down there, John Dutton, everybody. So what they've done is they're trying to create and get together a reenactment of this little skirmish, because a lot of people don't even realize it happened right there in Waynesboro, with Lee leaving and bumping into the wrong people and all this other stuff. So what they did was they set out to have their first little bed down on, reenactment kind of thing, bed down overnight thing. And when they looked up on the ridge, there was campfires and tents right on the ridge that they could all see. And there wasn't anybody else there. And in the morning, just like Steve just told, there was no fire burn marks. There was no. So I think they're on the right track to pleasing the guys that have been forgotten for so long.
To the French Revolution, there were some ladies, I think the school teachers or something, that were visiting the palace at Versailles. They saw who they thought to be Marie Antoinette out there around.
Yeah.
I believe it was the same ladies.
That time slip, yeah.
They heard cannon fire and gunshots and stuff, and there was nothing like that going on at the time.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. There's got to be something else to these great big, like all at the same time things, like the elevator, Gettysburg College. It goes down and opens up to that big scene of the makeshift hospital and surgery and amputations and things like that, and the horror of what that must have caused for, half of these doctors were dentists. They got pulled out of whatever they were so bad. Guys, I'm telling you, they could do 2 amputations a minute with somebody sewing behind them. That's how much they were. The amount of emotion that was put into the air,
they
the rock,
those saws up so that it cauterized the wound as they cut it.
It's so horrible, So all of that goes into that energy dispersed. I'd say nay, and nix on anybody that would say that the energy doesn't go anywhere. It goes into something. We know that it creates poltergeist, it creates all kinds of things. So, everybody in this chat wasn't buying it either, because Vixen is saying, an illusion doesn't hand you ammunition. And Edna's saying, I didn't know nothing about this one spot, walked in and knew all about it. We know it has so much more. But, some of these stuffed shirts, whether it's in the 70s and 90s or today, are just not going to push past that envelope. They're, but what are we going to tell them? Disbelief in gravity is not going to keep you from falling down the stairs, honey.
That's right.
We'll just be over here and keep on searching to find these facts, because I'll tell you, it's interesting every night, isn't it? We have such a ball. All right, to take us out, I made a little thing because I don't want you to forget on this wonderful holiday. If you're here or across the pond, I remember you too. The 56 who signed the Declaration of Independence. It didn't have the word independence on it, but they signed it, and they signed it in a knowing, whether, we know they didn't sign it on the 2nd or the 4th. It was mostly August 4th. They're going around. It took a while. So I think it was more than August 4th because these guys were in different states, colonies. So it took a while to take it around, get that original sign. But when signing it, they knew, putting their pen to paper, what they were up against. And like Benjamin Franklin said, if we do not hang together, we most assuredly will hang separately. Yep. So there it is. So this is a couple little facts about what happened to the 56, and I will see you next week. My love to the missus and the baby, and to you, my friend. And again, 10 years ago, we would have never thought. Here we are. And isn't it grand to be? I love you all.
Don't forget my radio show, everything out there on the Clyde Lewis Ground Zero Radio Network. Cisco, I want to have you back. I've got a topic that I think we'd have a lot of fun with. Childhood fears, real or imagined.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
That'd be a good one. I thought about that earlier today.
I'll come on and read a phone book for you, baby. I don't care. Yeah. We'll have a grand time. We always have. Steve always starts it out with I don't think we're going to be able to do 2 hours. 15 minutes later, we're an hour and a half over.
We're like, hey, we got to get out of here. I got to wrap it up. I got 2 hours.
I know, baby.
2 hours. All right. Just getting warmed up. Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Good night, everybody. Hey, listen, if you haven't subscribed, please hit the button on the way out. It doesn't cost a penny. Give it a thumbs up and come back and see me. We'll see you this week. We'll have some surprises. And don't forget, watch Liberty. There it is. There's the link. And try to find a way to see Sons and Turn. And I'll look into ways to getting that to you as well. If I can find it, we're going to go digging. All right. I love you all. Thanks for being here. Great night. Happy holiday, whatever you're celebrating out there. Let the fireworks fly.
Everybody stay
Let
safe.
them fly.
Hope you wake up on the 5th with all your fingers.
Amen. Good night. Good night, baby. Happy 4th. Independent. Freedom. Not free. Good night.